Well, let's look at the second story and see if you think this maybe is connected in some way. There are new audio recordings of Hillary Clinton speaking candidly and pointing fingers for her election loss. Addressing a gathering of donors in New York City, she blamed the FBI for sinking her campaign and said her 2011 comments about elections in Russia motivated President Vladimir Putin to target her.
Take it from Nate Silver, who's pointed out that swing state voters made their decisions in the final days, breaking against me because of the FBI letter from Director Comey. And Nate Silver believes, I happen to believe this, that that letter most likely made the difference in the outcome. We have to recognize that, as the latest reports made clear, Vladimir Putin himself directed the covert cyber attacks against our electoral system, against our democracy, apparently because he has a personal beef against me.
Mike Barnacle, what's your take on Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, everybody going out?
I think all of us have a lot of respect for the former Secretary of State, former Senator from New York, former First Lady. This is a sad way to step off the stage. The Comey letter certainly had an impact on the election in that it reminded voters of what she had failed to do for many, many months, and that's to address specifically and credibly her email problem. Her larger problem was she went to the country with really no story. She did not have a story to tell. Americans love stories. She had no narrative to tell. She was basically, when you strip it all away, her campaign came down to the phrase, "It's my turn."
Jeremy?
It's just this utter incapability for self-examination. It's the Russians' fault. It's Comey's fault. Apparently,
it's Uma's fault now.
It's Uma's fault.
It's actually Anthony's.
It's Obama's fault. It's fake news's fault. It's the media's fault. She took another gratuitous swipe at the media, saying it was our fault. But what all of this allows them and the Democratic Party to do is to avoid the tough questions about why they lost and how they alienated such a large block of voters that they needed to win, and the fact that none of them saw this for the election it was, which was a change election, and that she was not the agent of change that Americans wanted.
And all of this was not for the first time. If you look over the past 6 or 8 years, I mean, Mark, you've been out there covering this almost on a daily basis. The number of governorships that they've lost, the Democrats have lost in this country, the number of state legislatures controlled by Republicans, and thus gerrymandering, fixing up congressional districts. Their problems, the Democratic Party's problems, are going to continue for quite some time.
And we're looking right now, Mark, 68 House seats lost, 12 in the Senate, 10 Democratic governors lost over the past 8 years. You can make all the excuses you want to make. This is a party that right now is not connected with middle America.
The press narrative leading into the presidential election was the Republican Party is in crisis.
Yeah.
That was always a silly narrative. The Democratic Party was in crisis, except at the presidential level, and because of the Clinton campaign's failure, now they're in a crisis at the presidential level as well, and they face, depending on how Donald Trump conducts himself in office, potentially being locked out of lots of levels of government for a good long time. And the lack of introspection, at least publicly on her part, and I'm told privately, is not going to help the party come back.
The lack of introspection, David Ignatius, is pretty stunning. I have been bringing up a Dan Baltz article that I read back in the spring when everybody assumed that the Republicans were going to get wiped out. But Dan Baltz said, but you know what? If they win the presidency, the Republican Party, actually, for all of this hand-wringing that we're all doing about the Republican Party, Dan Baltz wrote, the Republican Party will be in the most dominant electoral position they've been in almost a century. And he was right. They are. But there doesn't seem to be, are we missing something? There doesn't seem to be sufficient speculation as to why the Democrats have been swept aside the way they have over the past 8 years.
Well, I think Hillary Clinton's comments that we played, they're painful to watch, are part of this process of sorting out what happened. I like the quicker, cleaner Barack Obama version after the 2010 midterm elections when he said, "We got shellacked."
Yeah.
He just looked it in the eye and said, "We got shellacked." And I think that was good for him. But this will go on for a long time. We'll never know the impact of the Comey letter. But I do think that one point that Hillary Clinton made in that little piece we saw about this being a personal beef of Vladimir Putin, that's possible. And I think one value of a bipartisan congressional investigation through a select committee, as McCain and Graham want, or whatever way, is that it would get to issues like that. So we'd see this and understand it. Not to excuse Hillary Clinton, but to understand what happened to us.
I think if she did not say this first and had a unifying message not only for the party on where things went wrong, but also for the new president, the incoming president, respect for him, and that everybody has to press reset and try and help the president, which is something President Obama has said. And then she started to look at these things as well and call for some introspection, but also some inspection on the Russians and the other issues that may have played a role. I think that would be perfectly fine because all are pretty important.
Right.
President Obama held his last news
I just want to say they need to understand. Everybody needs to understand this investigation is coming. It is going to be wide-reaching. It's going to be bipartisan. Mitch McConnell is bought in on it. Paul Ryan's going to be bought in on it. So that investigation is coming. We're going to learn all of this. But it is time for the Democrats to actually look and say, why are we so disconnected from America? What has happened over the past 8 years?